Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Raj, your HR pal. A quick intro about me. I come with 2 decades of experience in the field of HR, served with top IT majors. In today's video, let's talk about how you can improvise on your presentation skills and make a killer presentation, right? So I think all of you will acknowledge with me that presentation skills is something which is applicable for any segment of people, right? I mean, whether you are a student giving a classroom presentation or a business professional presenting a proposal to your colleagues, your customers or your stakeholders or someone in between, right? However, delivering an effective presentation is an essential skill. A successful presentation can help you to communicate your message effectively, engage with your audience and achieve your goals. However, delivering a great presentation requires careful planning, preparation and practice, right? In today's session, we will explore some tips and techniques for delivering a successful presentation, from starting with a clear message to engaging your audience and everything in between, right? So we will cover the essential skills that you will need to make the presentation that is engaging, memorable and effective. So if you are looking to improve your presentation skills or simply want to learn more about how to deliver a great presentation, then stay tuned for this informative and helpful session. In today's video, I will share you 10 tips and techniques that will help you deliver a killer presentation. Number 1, the first impression. And remember folks, the first impression is the most important, right? The impression that you create at the start will go a long way throughout the presentation session. How do you do that? 1, you got to portray yourself being confident, because if you have to grab the attention of the audience, then they have to believe that you're confident and knowledgeable on the topic or content that you intend to present. Second, have eye contact with the audience. Having eye contact with the audience will help the audience to know that you're confident. Third, be well groomed, right? Having the right attire, the professional attire, will make you feel confident throughout the presentation session. Fourth, speak clearly and concisely, right? So starting your presentation with a clear and concise message is critical to capture your audience attention and ensuring that they understand the purpose of your presentation. Your message should be short and memorable. That summarizes the main point of your presentation. It should be easy to understand and relevant to your audience. To develop a clear and concise message, you should first identify the key message that you want to communicate. This message should be focused on the core idea or objective of your presentation. Once you have identified your key message, you should then think about how to convey it in a concise and engaging way. Now, here are some tips on how you can develop a clear and concise message. Keep it simple, right? Avoid using jargons or technical terms that your audience may not understand, right? So use plain language and keep your message simple and easy to understand. Second, make it relevant. Your message should be relevant to your audience and address their needs, right? So consider what your audience wants to know from you and what they hope to gain from your presentation. Third, make it memorable, right? So your message should be memorable and easy to remember. Use powerful language and imagery that will stick in your audience minds. And remember folks, the very first attribute I mentioned for making the first impression right was confidence, and confidence comes with the amount of practice that you've done on the presentation delivery, and hence practicing is most essential. We will talk about it at length at the later part of this video, okay? The next is to have courtesy. Use the magic words like please, thank you, have a request tone, greet them, appreciate them for coming forward and being participative. And the more and more the courtesy words that you use, the more and more the audience will come closer to you. right? And hence, remember folks, having the right first impression is most important, because that will help you grab your audience attention towards you and set the tone for rest of your presentation. Hence, follow these tips so that you can develop a message that is focused, engaged and memorable. The second tip is to know your audience, right? Knowing your audience is crucial for delivering an effective presentation, right? When you understand your audience, you can tailor your message to their needs, interests and the knowledge level, right? When I say knowledge level, you got to know the proficiency that your audience holds to the topic that you are intending to present. Example, let's say if your audience is already at an intermediary level and you intend to make the presentation on the topic for a beginner, then the entire presentation purpose gets defeated, right? So hence it's important for you to understand the knowledge level of your audience on the topic that you intend to present. This will help you engage your audience and make the presentation more relevant and valuable for them. Here are some ways on how you can know your audience. First, research about your audience, right? So before your presentation, research about your audience to learn more about their demographics, interests and knowledge level. Second, identify their needs and concerns. Think about what your audience wants to know from you and what they hope to gain from your presentation. This will help you focus on your message and ensure that it is relevant to their needs and concerns, right? The third, adapt to their communication style. Consider how your audience prefers to receive the information, right? Do they prefer it via visual aids or written materials? I mean, we will talk about it in detail in the later part of the video as well, but understand from them, do they prefer a more formal or informal presentation style, right? So it's important so that you can tailor it to their needs and make the presentation more effective. Fourth, use examples that resonates, right? So incorporate examples and stories that are relevant and relatable to your audience, right? This will help you explain your points and make your presentation more engaging, right? If your examples are more closely connected to your audience, then your audience will also start getting closer to the content that you're wanting to deliver through the presentation. The third tip is to structure your presentation, right? So structuring your presentation is important for delivering a clear message to your audience, right? So a well structured presentation will help your audience understand your key points and stay engaged through the presentation, right? Here are some tips for how you can structure your presentation, right? So there are three phases. One, the introduction. The second is the main theme. Third is the conclusion or a summary, right? When I say introduction, the introduction is very important because this is where you set the tone of your presentation and grab your audience attention, right? And hence start with a strong opening statement that captures their interest and provides the context of your presentation, right? You can also use this time to introduce yourself, establish your credibility, take time in getting the audience introduce themselves, right? Beyond this, as part of introduction, it is also important for a presenter to understand the objective of the presentation, right? I mean, as a presenter, what do I want to achieve out of this presentation session, right? Second, what do I want my audience to know? How will I keep my audience engaged throughout the session? What are the activities that I will give my audience to make them more participative throughout the session? And what do I want my participants or my audience to carry once the presentation is completed, right? The second is the main theme of the presentation, right? When I say the main theme, this is where you provide the details and evidence to support your message during the presentation, right? You should organize your presentation into clear and logical sections, right? Each with a specific purpose. Use headings, subheadings to guide your audience and help them follow along, right? So throughout this main theme, main body of the presentation, okay, share your personal views, share your recommendations to each of the contents that you showcase, right? And take inputs, opinions, brainstorm so that the audience also feels engaged, right? Wherever possible, try to bring real life incidents and some testimonials. It could be from your career, it could be from the experiences that you have gone through, it could be your friend's experience, etc., right? I mean, bring some sort of real life scenarios to support the message that you are trying to convey to them, right? I mean, wherever there have been evidences, facts supporting what you say, right, the message goes very strongly into the minds of the audience, right? The third, conclusion, right? The way introduction is very important. Similarly, conclusion phase of the presentation is also very, very important. And this is the phase where you summarize your main points and provide a clear call to action, right? So this is your opportunity to leave a lasting impression on your audience and motivate them to take action based on your presentation, right? You can also use this time to thank your audience for their attention and answer to any questions that they may have, right? So this is very important, okay? I reiterate, it is important for you to summarize the main points that one needs to carry from this presentation session, right? How it can be used on their daily life. Third, how they can apply with ease the pointers that you have explained in your presentation. Okay, so here are some additional tips for structuring your presentation. I again repeat, keep it simple. I think throughout your presentation, in any phase of the presentation, it's very important to keep things very simple. Don't overcomplicate your presentation with too many information or too many ideas, right? Focus on your main points and use examples to illustrate your message, right? The second is to use visual aids. Visual aids like slides, charts or graphs, right? This can help you convey your message more effectively. I think as I mentioned earlier as well, we will talk about it in detail at the later part of the presentation. However, use transitions to guide your audience from one section to another, right? So that it's easy to understand. Use transitions, right? So using transitions will guide your audience from one section of your presentation to the next, right? So this will keep your audience engaged and prevent them from getting lost, right? Now, overall, structuring your presentation is very crucial. It is important to ensure that your structuring is clear and in a logical way, right? So that you can deliver a more effective message to your audience. This will also help you capture your attention, build their interest and motivate them to take action based on your presentations. The fourth tip is to have a prompt, right? And this prompt is not for the audience, it is for the presenter, right? So have short bullet points, make a note of keywords, even if you're using a PowerPoint slides, right? Ensure that you keep your pointers or keywords very short, right? Because the intent of the presentation is not for the audience to see the slides, rather it is to look at you, and these slides should only be a prompting pointers for you, right? And the detailed messaging or the detailed explanation should come from you, right? Otherwise it will be more of reading the presentation and maybe the audience might not feel more interested towards the presentation session, and hence it is important to ensure that your slides have only the keywords and not the details. Alright, so let's move on to the fifth tip. Use visuals effectively, right? So using visuals effectively can greatly enhance your presentation and help you to communicate your message more clearly and effectively. right? So visual aids without speaking increases the retention of information by the audience to 35%, right? Using both the visual aid and oral presentation increases the retention by 65%, right? And hence, preparing a good visual aid and modeling your speech will make your presentation much better. So here are some tips of using visuals effectively, right? The first, choose the right visuals, very important, right? Using visuals that are relevant to your message and that helps you to illustrate your points, right? So hence ensure that the photos, the graphs, the charts or the videos that you choose are relevant to what you intend to communicate, right? I'll just give you an example. Let's say you're presenting about an examination, right? You cannot have an image of a flower, right? You cannot have an image of anything that is irrelevant to your examination or studies, right? And hence it is important to ensure that the content that you talk versus the image or the visual that you try to bring in there resonates overall, right? And hence make sure that your visuals are easy to understand and visually appealing. Let the visuals or the images not be too complicated or it is very small that the audience is not able to relate as to why the image is being put into the content that you are trying to present. The second, I repeat this again, right? Keep it simple, right? Even when it comes to visuals, avoid using too many images, too many photos, too many videos, or cluttering your slides with too much of information. We discussed this in the fourth pointer as well, right? I mean, these slides, informations should only give you a prompt, right? It should not be too cluttered for audience not to understand it or not able to relate what you're trying to say. Hence, keep your visuals simple and easy to understand, right? Use bullet points and short phrases to highlight the key pointers that you intend to explain. Third, use high quality visuals. Make sure that the visuals that you are presenting or using as part of your slides are of high quality and easy to read, right? So this can help to ensure that your audience can clearly see and understand the message that you intend to give. Avoid using low quality images or graphics that are difficult to read or understand. The next pointer, practice with your visuals, right? I think we discussed this earlier in the video as well. Practice is very important and hence practice with your slides, practice with the visuals that you intend to showcase in the presentation. So practice delivering your presentation with the visuals so that they are integrated effectively with your presentation, right? So make sure that you know when to advance your slides and your visuals are very well synced with your message, right? The fifth or the next pointer, use visuals to enhance your message. Let it not duplicate, right? So visuals should support your message and help to illustrate your pointers, right? Don't rely too heavily on visuals to carry your message, right? So both, the visuals and your presentation or your oral speech should help each other, should support each other, right? So hence use them to enhance your message and to make it more engaging for your audience, right? So overall, by using visuals effectively, you can make your presentation more engaging and memorable, right? You might still recall certain presentations where you saw a certain image in the presentation and that image might still be in your minds, right? And that may make you remember the presentation session that you went through, right? So visuals can help you to communicate your message more clearly and effectively, and it can also help you to keep your audience engaged and interested throughout your presentation session. Very important. The sixth tip is practice, right? So we have discussed this earlier in this video itself, that how important is practice before delivering a presentation. And one of the important attribute of drawing your audience attention is the confidence, and confidence comes with the amount of practice that you've done, right? And hence, practicing your presentation is essential for delivering a confident and polished presentation, right? So here are some tips for practicing your presentation. First, rehearse your presentation, right? There is no specific number of times before practice, right? You can rehearse your presentation several times, as many times till you feel that you're comfortable with the material. And it is also important that you have rehearsed very well on the flow of the presentation, right? So practice in front of a mirror or with a friend or with a family member. Also, it's important for you to get the feedback on your delivery and the body language so that you can work upon it before you really land for the presentation delivery. Next, time yourself. Many a times, we see that, there's always a flaw, the presentation, extended, or the presentation, ended very soon, right? So ensure that you time yourself as part of your rehearsal sessions itself to ensure that your presentation fits within the allocated time, right? So make adjustments as necessary to ensure that your presentation is concise, to the point, and you have completed the entire planned presentation within the allocated time, right? So it's important to time yourself. Third, use cue cards. Now, cue cards can help you remember the key points and keep your presentation on track, right? Use it, write down key phrases or the bullet points that you want to cover during the presentation. Now, fourth, record yourself. Record yourself delivering a presentation so that you identify areas that you may need to work upon improving, right? So listen to your recording to identify any verbal pauses that you had, any mistakes that you had, or any other habit that you may want to work upon. And hence, it's important that you record yourself, listen to it, and improvise. Fifth, get feedback. Ask a colleague or anyone, it could be your friend, your family member, your colleague, to watch your presentation and get the feedback. Ask for an honest feedback on your delivery, right? Many a times you see that, if it's your friend, if your family member, right, they say that, okay, you did fantastic. But then, the audience that you would be delivering the presentation on, neither a known person for you, okay, a friend nor a family member who will always appreciate. The audience is very new to you, or, an audience, though they might know you, but they come with a professional objective, right? And hence, ask for an honest feedback from your friend or your family member on the delivery on the presentation delivery, the content and the visuals that you showed as part of the presentation, so that you can work upon it before you really land for the real presentation delivery. Sixth, practice under simulated conditions. Very important, right? So practice your presentation under conditions that are as close to the actual presentation as possible, because this can help you prepare for any sort of unexpected interruption or distractions, right? So keep your rehearsals in an environment as close to reality as possible. As we have been discussing, practicing your presentation is very important and crucial to make a great presentation, right? By practicing, you can improve your delivery and build your confidence. You can also identify areas where you may need to make adjustments to your content or delivery. Practicing can also help you deliver a more effective and engaging presentation that resonates directly with your audience, right? So there is no number of practices before a presentation, right? Keep practicing till you feel that you are perfect and you are aligned to what your audience needs. Right, so let's move on to the seventh tip, engaging with your audience. Now, very important, right? Because engaging with your audience is an important aspect for delivering a successful presentation, Now, when your audience is engaged, they are more likely to retain the message that you delivered as part of your presentation and also take action based on the presentation that you made. Here are some tips on how you can engage with your audience. First, start with a hook. I think if you recall, when I said the structure of a presentation, the very first was introduction, and I said that start your presentation with a strong opening statement, right? So that is what it actually means. So start your presentation with a strong opening statement or a question that captures the audience attention and establishes a connection with them, right? So you can also start the session with an activity so that the audience feel relaxed, loosen themselves, so that they get more comfortable and closer to you. Second, use storytelling, right? So storytelling with some sort of examples can make your message more relatable, right? So share some examples that can bring your message to life, right? I think we spoke about this in the earlier part of the video as well. Use testimonials, use some experiences from your professional experience or your personal life or any experience of your friend, something that you can bring some sort of a real life incident into the message so that it becomes very strong. Third, use humor, right? Because humor can help in breaking the ice and create a more relaxed atmosphere, right? Because many a times, if the presentation is very serious, right, there is a possibility that the audience might feel less interested into your presentation over a period of time, and hence it's important where you use humor sparingly and make sure that it's appropriate to your audience, right? Ensure that the humor is not misleading or it is creating some sort of an uncomfort to your audience, right? Fourth, encourage participation, right? Otherwise it will become very monotonous, and if it becomes monotonous, take my words, it will only ensure that only you are talking and your audience, or they following you, not following you, or they really feeling interested in the session, the content that you are trying to imbibe in them, is it really getting into their minds or not, right? Because the effectiveness of a presentation is based on how much have you impacted your audience with your delivery, right? And hence encourage participation, because if you encourage participation in your presentation, right, by asking questions or feedback, it can help create a more interactive and engaging experience for your audience, right? Fifth, again, we've discussed this, use visuals, right? Use visuals like slides. Again, within the slides you can use charts, graphs, images, which can support your message and keep your audience engaged. Many times you would see that any new image that you bring in as part of your presentation can be an eye-catchy to the audience and something that can remain in the memories of people, right? And ensure that the visuals are relevant and easy to understand. I think we have discussed this in detail in the previous part, right? If you have missed that, please go back to the video and get the complete understanding of how visual aids can help you in your presentation, right? Sixth, use the right body language, right? Because the body language is meant to convey confidence and enthusiasm. Make eye contact with your audience and use gestures to emphasize your key points, right? It is very important for you to shake hands, make hand gestures, so that you are able to show your enthusiasm to your audience, right? With that, you are also trying to make sure that your audience is also resonating with your enthusiasm, right? Seventh, be passionate, right? Very important, because as a presenter, you got to show the confidence, the passion that you have for the topic and the enthusiasm that you have for the topic during the presentation, because your energy your energy and enthusiasm can help your audience be engaged and interested throughout the session, because it is more about this, I mean, as a presenter, you got to transfer your energy into your audience, so that it's a win-win presentation for both, right? Overall, by engaging your audience, you can create a more memorable and impactful presentation. Your audience will be more likely to retain your message and take action based on your presentation. Right, so moving on to the 8th tip from delivering a killer presentation is the body language. While we have touched upon this very briefly, let's talk about it in detail in this segment, right? So what is a body language? Body language is an art of communicating with the help of gestures, your poses, the movements that you make, and your facial expression, right? So how would you determine? I mean, let me make it even more detailed, right? So what's your body telling us? What's your body telling you, right? So the impression that people make on one another, right, is based 55% of their appearance, 38% based on how they talk, right, and 7% based on the words that they choose while talking. In other words, if I have to say, 7% of the impression is made based on the words that you choose while talking. 38% is based on the vocal, which is the pitch or the amount of pause that you had during talking, and 55% is based on non-verbal, which is the body language, right? So using body language and voice effectively can greatly enhance your presentation and help you to communicate your message more effectively, right? So what it actually means. So here are some tips for using body language and your voice effectively. First, use your eye contact, right? So make eye contact with your audience to establish a connection with them and show that you're confident and engaged, right? So when I say eye contact, it should show attention and interest, right? Make 3 to 5 seconds of contact, right? Do not frequently read notes or turn towards the screen, right? I mean, it is very important that when you're presenting, you have your eye contact with your audience, right? Second, use gestures, right? So it is important to use gestures to emphasize your key points and help illustrate your message, right? Make sure that your gestures are natural, right, and not too exaggerated. Third, using your facial expressions, right? So use facial expressions to convey emotion and to help engage with your audience, right? So wherever needed, smile as appropriate and show your enthusiasm in your tone. Fourth, use vocal variety, very important, right? So use it to keep your audience engaged and interested, right? So vary your tone and pace to emphasize key points and help illustrate your message. Vary your pitch, volume and the modulation based on the topic that you are explaining, right? Intonate, which again means the same, right? I mean, rise and lower your tone based on the situation or based on the content that you're talking, right? Overemphasize. Overemphasizing any key aspects of your presentation, right? I mean, if there are certain pointers that the audience need to remember or make note of, overemphasize, right? And it is also important to understand your crowd's body language, because their body language can explain, right, as to how interested or how interesting the presentation session has been, right? Based on that, you can do some course correction and make the session more interesting if the body language is not too convincing for you from the audience, right? Next is to use pauses, right? Because use pauses to give your audience the required time to process your message and to create emphasis, right? Because pauses can also help to create a more relaxed atmosphere, right? So it's important, wherever there are some important pointers that you have made, right, as what I said as part of overemphasis, right, ensure that you give some pause for the audience to resonate it, to make a note of it, and also to memorize, to ensure that these are the key takeaways from the presentation, right? The next is to use posture, right? Because use posture to convey confidence and to create a positive impression, because it is very important. We will talk about posture in the subsequent segments as well, but to brief it, stand up straight on your shoulders back and your chin up. That's very important. The next, avoid distractive movements, right? So distracting movements like maybe swaying, right? You must have seen, a presenter walking forward to backward or side to side. I think it distracts the concentration of the audience, and hence it is recommended to avoid. The second is pacing, right? Many times you would have also noticed certain presenters walking at a steady speed. It can also show some sort of anxiety that the presenter has, or the presenter is in a mood to complete or to close the presentation sooner. Third, fidgeting, right? It means there's some sort of nervousness or impatience or uneasiness that a presenter might have, right? So avoid all of these three. It could be swaying, it could be pacing, or it could be fidgeting. These movements can distract you from your message, and it can also make it more difficult for the audience to focus, right? Let's now cover about posture, right? Very important. I think we also spoke about this at the earlier part of this video itself, that how important body language and posture is, to determine how confident we are and to grab the attention of the audience, right? So first tip, balance on both of your feet. There might have been some scenarios where you would have seen where there's a presenter standing on one feet and the other feet on the wall, right, and kneeling on the wall. It should be avoided, because the confidence of the presenter is known when he or she balances on both of their feet, right? The second, as I already touched upon briefly, don't kneel on the wall or the table which is next to you, right? Avoid that. Third, walk around the classroom or the training room that you are in, right? While it is important that you don't move too quickly, because it can distract the audience, but then it is also important that you are not stagnant or remaining in only one place in this room, right? So move around in the classroom. The next tip is to use your hands more effectively when you speak, okay, because it can show how involved you are, how passionate you are, how much of enthusiasm you have for the presentation. Next is, don't tie your arms, right? Don't tie your arms, or you play with your hairs, or anything that you see on the table. You have a marker, you have some pen, don't play around with it, right? So ensure that that is not done, because that can be distracting, right? Overall, by using body language and voice effectively, you can enhance your presentation and also help to keep your audience engaged and interested throughout the session. Your body language and voice can help you to convey your confidence and enthusiasm for your message, which can result in making it more impactful and memorable for your audience. The ninth tip is style. Now this is for you as a presenter, right? You already have a style, and just go with that. Don't try to imitate someone or don't try to copy someone, because that's when you might not be yourself, and you might try to, as part of your imitation process, you might try to be superficial, right? And hence the style that you have, just go with that. Don't copy someone's style. Use words during your presentation that you use in your normal days, right? The sentences that you use, the words that you use, let it be as normal as possible. Let it not look as if you're using those words for the very first time, or you're trying to use those words just for the sake of the presentation, because there can be many things that can be a repercussion to it. One, you might not have confidence in using it. Second, the presentation might look artificial. The third, you might fumble, right? So ensure that you use the same sort of words and sentences that you use in your normal days. Be yourself, right? We touched upon it, right? Be yourself. Don't try to copy others, right? So do your presentation the way you intend to do in your own style. Other important aspect of the style is be confident, and we have touched upon this in detail earlier as well, how to be confident, right? It is also important to make the audience feel confident, right? How do you do that, right? Getting very closer to them. If you remember, we spoke about having a strong opening statement, making the audience more participative, making using the courtesy words like thank you, engaging with the audience on a request tone, appreciating the audience for being participative. So it is also important for you to be confident, and also making the audience feel confident about yourself. Okay? Alright, the last and the final tip for delivering a killer presentation: handle questions and feedback. Very important, right? Because this is one segment that you give it to the audience, while you would have created ambience for the audience to be more participative throughout the session, but then this particular segment is for them, right? To help them on any doubts that they have, the questions that they might have, right? So this segment is very important, and it is also very important for you to be very patient enough to handle those questions and answer to them tactfully, right? So as I said, handling questions and feedback is an important part of delivering a successful presentation, and here are some tips on how you can handle these questions and feedback. First, most important, listen actively, because it is very important for you to listen carefully to the question or the feedback that you are receiving. Make sure that you are able to understand the question or the feedback before responding, right? I mean, if you have any doubts, clarify, right? If you are unsure about the question, or you have not got the question to the extent that you have understood, right? So ask for clarification. This can help you to provide the most relevant and accurate response to the question that is being asked. Respond respectfully. Very important, okay? Because responding respectfully to the question or the feedback, even if you disagree with it, is important. There might be scenarios where you might feel defensive or dismissive, but ensure that the response or the clarification or the answer that you're giving it to your audience is respectfully, right? Fourth, stay on topic. Many a times you might encounter questions that might come in which is not relevant to the topic that you had actually covered as part of your presentation, right? So while it is okay to slightly deviate, okay, but ensure that it is not completely off the topic, right? So stay on the topic while you are responding to the questions, even if you have some examples to share as part of the response for the question that comes into you, right? Ensure that the example or the response is relevant, right, to the question, and gives a direct answer to the question asked, right? And as I said, right, make your examples more relatable, right? It can give a strong connection with your audience and also help in answering to the question more effectively. Be concise, right? I've been telling this from the start of this presentation. Keep it simple and concise, right? When you are responding to any of the question or feedback, keep your response focused, to the point, and keep the language very simple, right? So that the audience understands, gets the right answer expected from you. Last but not the least, thank the audience, right? Thank the audience for the questions or the feedback that they ask, right? If there are no questions, it is also important that you provoke, instigate them to ask questions, right? This can help create a positive impression and show that you value their input. By handling questions and feedbacks effectively, you can create a more engaging and interactive experience for your audience, right? So your ability to respond to questions and feedback can also help to reinforce your message and demonstrate your expertise on the topic that you had presented, right? So hence, pay more attention to this Q&A segment, because that can help you understand how much the audience has been attentive to the entire presentation of yours, and also help them with any sort of clarification and answers that they might need. And it can also help the audience understand that you are more confident to the topic that you had spoken throughout the presentation. And this is another opportunity for you to demonstrate your confidence, right? With this, we have covered all the 10 tips and techniques that can help you deliver a great presentation, right? So in conclusion, delivering a successful presentation requires careful planning, preparation, and most importantly, practice. Starting with a clear and concise message, knowing your audience, structuring your presentation, using visual aids effectively, practicing your delivery, engaging your audience, and effectively handling your question and feedback are all important aspects of delivering a great presentation, right? So by following these tips and techniques, you can create a presentation that is impactful, memorable, and engaging for your audience. Remember, the goal of a presentation is to communicate a message effectively, and by putting in the effort to create a well-structured and engaging presentation, you can achieve the goal and leave a lasting impression on your audience, right? So I hope these tips have been helpful for improving your presentation skills. Thank you for listening to this session. If you like this session and feel that it was helpful, please like this video, share it with your friends who are also looking for similar content. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great learning.